Breaking Glass was released in September 1980, directed by Brian Gibson and starring Hazel O'Connor, Philip Daniels and Jonathan Pryce. The film tells a story charting the rise and fall of Kate Crowley, an angry but creative young singer and songwriter. At the beginning of the film, she is discovered by Danny, a young man who desperately wants to become a promoter of music bands, but is stuck working for another agent who forces him to buy hundreds of copies of other singles, usually by an artist like Susie Sapphire, who is a middle-of-the-road bland pop goddess of instantly forgettable songs in order to fix the music charts. Danny takes an active part in controlling Kate's career, impressed with her talent if not her band, whom he promptly fires. He arranges auditions and reaches out to former friends, and in doing so, Kate's new band, Breaking Glass, is formed. Breaking Glass consists of Kate on vocals and keyboards, best friends Tony and Dave on lead and bass guitar respectively, the hearing addicted and partially deaf Ken on saxophone, and mental Mickey on drums. Danny does his best to promote the band, but the best he can do is gigs around London's pub scene. After a brawl breaks out at one gig, Danny finally manages to persuade Kate to record a demo tape, and it's during this time that Kate and Danny's relationship officially becomes a romance. All along, their hard work eventually pays off, and the gig promoter finally agrees to help them. Several months pass as the band tours, building up a large fan base. Danny blackmails his former employer, threatening to reveal how he paid Danny to rig the charts into attending a gig at London. However, disaster strikes when the band begins to perform and a power cut occurs. Encouraged by Danny and Mick, the band continues anyway and win over the hostile crowd. The performance greatly impresses the music agents and the band is offered a record contract. From the start, the dream turns sour as the record execs constantly demand changes to lyrics. There are creative problems during the album's recording, and the success of their first song is promoted similarly to that of Sophie Sapphire's. But things hit their worst when, at an anti-racism concert, a riot breaks out and a young lad is stabbed, which Kate witnesses. While recovering from her trauma, Kate is forced to audition for a famous music producer, Bob Woods, who makes it clear that he wants to promote her music and also be involved with her. Kate's new songs seem to help her recover mentally, but the rest of the band are not happy. Danny finds himself being pushed more and more into the sidelines, and Ken has no saxophone part to play in the new single. On tour again, the agents start sowing seeds of discontent among the band, hinting heavily that Danny is the problem. This leads to a confrontation on the tour bus, after which Danny storms out and quits. Woods now moves in and as the band's manager and becomes Kate's new lover. More success follows, but the stress is pulling the band apart. Mick quits, claiming to be bored of the simplistic drum patterns he's been given to play. Kate hates the pressures and lack of control that fame has brought her. Dave and Tony treat Ken terribly, hating him for being a junkie, and he quits too. By now, the band's name has been amended to Kate and Breaking Glass. During a radio show which invites listeners to call in, Kate has trouble understanding her fans and gets angry when she is accused of being controlled by her record company, and even more so when someone she thinks is Danny calls in to accuse her of selling out. Next single release is Big Brother, which features the offensive lyrics completely changed as the music agents originally wanted, proving she has indeed sold out. The film ends with a huge concert at the Rainbow Theatre and the debut of her new song. Although already drugged, Kate is forced to go on stage as the doctor injects her in the bum with more drugs. After the song finishes, Kate flees the stage into the London Underground, where she begins to hallucinate people dressed as her and former bandmates, and has a nervous breakdown. The final scene shows Kate catatonic at a mental hospital, where Danny comes to visit her and to bring her a synthesizer. Does it still hold up today? Though not an original story going back to Hollywood's golden age, there are stories warning off woes of fame and how the dream can turn sour on us. But unlike most stories of this type, it does still work, in that it is a great dynamic human relationship at the centre of the story, almost a story in its own right, superfluous to the music side. It's also a fascinating insight to how industry and creativity generally don't mix. That relationship between wanting to find something new to be the next big thing, only to then tweak it so much so that the investment is secured and the profits guaranteed, that in the end it becomes the same old thing. And that without the strength to keep control and the mentality to take risk and accept failure as a potential consequence, no true art can be formed. It's also, if not somewhat simplified, a historical reflection of the chaotic times in London and other major cities. After all, at that time in Britain, if you lived in the sticks, the only major hazards you really had to worry about were the birds attacking the foil on your milk bottle tops, being pestered for a penny for the guy, and holding your breath long enough when passing a field in the stubble. Shot in the 2:35:1 aspect ratio, which makes good use of London as a backdrop, and in deep, more naturalistic colour tones, resisting the temptation to use filters or desaturate in post, creates an environment and landscape that feels more lived in, more visceral than most music industry set movies. What with the stellar performances from the entire cast, the subtle innuendos and occasional sledgehammer visual to the face, such as the less than subtle impacts of racism is wrong, yet at the same time promoting favoured people at the expense of real talent as an ism, keeps you engaged without it becoming too preachy or losing sight of the more intimate human story that develops between Kate and Danny. There's nothing overtly glamorous here. All the genuine warmth comes from the relationship of their central characters, and our rooting for them to achieve their big dream, despite the coldness of the world they break into, which is both indifferent to their plight until they are of some commercial benefit to them, and then uses them in the same way as any prop is used. This becomes more evident as Kate becomes more isolated from her friends. The way she is even physically abused, both sexually and in terms of identity, as fans become like clones of her. Life for Kate is like living constantly in a world of mirrors. Drugs and the eventual breakdown are always at that point where it's all leading to, and the crash, although destroys both her career and a nightmare, does at the end leave us with some hope that she, with Danny's help, will find what really matters to her again. It also leaves you thinking, if the industry is just like that now, the curious thought of that of big artists like Taylor Swift could be treated like Kate is during the final gig, and that the banal blandness of instantly forgettable concerts which earn multi-millions worldwide after watching this film gives you a whole new perspective on the idea of stadium events that you kind of yearn to go and see a band play at the local pub. If you like films such as A Star is Born, Bohemian Rhapsody, Walk the Line or Control, for example, then you'll like this, and if you don't but want something a little different, a slice of grim 80s subculture that's more adult in theme, I recommend it to you as a diverting little bit of fun.